It's not getting it.
So I want to welcome everybody out there in podcast land to the Good Time with Good People Company presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let me introduce you to the panel. First, our returning champion, Chris O'Connor. He is the co-owner of Liquid 9 Broadcast Media Production. We've got Dave Elliott, aka Big Dave, owner of C&P Construction. Brian Massey, he's a data analyst at DST Systems. And of course, the anonymous female, because she doesn't want you to know her name. So before the podcast, we were having a lively discussion that will be posted up in the precast. If you didn't notice from last week, I started posting the precast because sometimes the precast discussions are just as good as the podcast discussions. Sometimes they might even be better, so I started recording them. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge the Majestic Restaurants Pendergast Club. I want to acknowledge J. Rieger and Company, Kansas City Distillery, and also Lane Boland. He is a member of the panel usually, but he is actually one of the sponsors, or should I just say friends of the podcast. I like that term better. It helps us keep things pushing forward. So before we get started with today's topic, what are we drinking? And I will start with Brian.
I got a barrel-aged Manhattan on the rocks.
And normally I would go around, but I am drinking the exact same thing today. Delicious.
From the Majestic restaurant.
From the Majestic, yeah, because they have a barrel-aged.
Our star bartender.
Yeah, they have a barrel-aged Manhattan that's pretty amazing. It's actually, for the majority, pre-mixed, and they do have a real barrel in-house that they age it and bottle it and pour it up at the bar for us, and it is pretty awesome. Big Dave?
I am drinking some Plantation 5-year rum, of course.
Of course.
From Barbados. It was really the second rum that I got into. My first rum was Appleton Estate out of Jamaica. But,
I love Appleton.
Yeah, I like that too. This is it really kind of got me on my rum quest, where I started traveling the Caribbean and South America in order to discover the different rums of the region.
Gotcha. All right. And Chris?
Well, I'm always doing a Pendergast with a new whiskey, always.
All right. And I'm going to assume, because that glass is awfully clear, that the anonymous female is drinking H2O.
Yes, I am. I'm just getting over from being sick, so no alcohol for me
So
today.
like a little bit of good agua.
Yeah, and I have not had enough.
Nothing
So
better than alcohol to get you over sickness.
if my stomach could handle it, I probably would. But I'm pretty sure it wouldn't today.
And so what are we smoking? And I'll go around the other way, and I'll start with Chris.
Always the only even serious G, but still my go-to.
Yeah.
Day to day.
And it is a damn good smoke.
I like it.
It's a damn good smoke. Big Dave?
As usual, I'll kind of stick with my La Flora Dominica.
Mm-hmm.
But this is an Oro,
Okay.
and it's one of their special rolls, and
Look like a different.
it's a quite flavorful cigar.
That looks
And
good.
they have two type of Oros. They got an Oro Natural, and then they got an Oro Maduro. The Maduro is a strong cigar, so it's something you got to have like after you eat. It's a good evening cigar, but this is just your good get home from work cigar, LFD Oro.
All right. I am smoking my usual in our 12 Fuente Rosado. Just a good medium length, medium to full body. Just a great smoke. It's really kind of good whether it's just with a drink or after dinner or whatever. So I like it a lot. I'm going to let these sirens pass for a second. because I don't know where they're going, but
It's a great segue.
they're coming awfully fast. And yes, it is actually a perfect segue.
The loft is in the city.
And yes, the loft is in the middle of the city. So, given today's topic, those sirens are actually kind of timely because today's topic is mass shootings. Given the Orlando shooting and all of the other mass shootings that we've had in the country, I guess the real question is, what do we need to do? You hear a lot of the pundits and talking heads, talking about, gun control or crazy control, just, it's a mental health issue. And, I personally think it's way more nuanced than just one of those things alone. And I thought that the panel would have some pretty good thoughts on it. But before we do, I found a list of not all of the mass shootings, because we did, because there's been a lot of them. But this is the deadliest mass shootings. And actually, it starts with the one that we just had, the nightclub shooting in Orlando. Was it 50 dead, 53 injured
So far.
And I also assume there's an Indian
Well, and
tribe
50
that's
dead
like,
is it was
That's the
49.
most.
Oh, 49 in the
and
number.
And then the shooter made 50, and they don't consider him a.
Nor should they. Piece of shit.
Yeah. You were finna say, Chris?
I always think somewhere there's an Indian tribe who's just completely offended by this list. I was like, really?
Yeah, right. Really?
Let me tell you some stories.
Exactly. You had Virginia Tech. That was,
Yeah.
that
was the first school, really. Well, no, that was the
University of
second.
Texas had a big shooting.
Yeah, 32
Right.
people killed,
44.
17 injured.
He had no ideology, though, did he?
Virginia Tech?
Yeah.
Not
No, it was
that.
over a girl or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, like he was just like
No,
kind of an
no, it wasn't.
outcast, nerdy type, and so one of the few that didn't seem to have any real other kind of ideology behind it. Sandy Hook.
That was just a crazy man.
Yeah, just.
No, well, he went after a teacher.
Yeah.
That's what he went there for. He went after to kill a teacher.
Of course, 26 people killed, most of them children, and
But that young man was severely mentally disabled.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he had real.
This goes
real
back
mental
when
problems.
Reagan let a lot of these people out of the mental hospital.
But did that happen under
And then
LBJ?
don't forget that happened. He was the one that said, you can't do this.
I thought that happened under the LBJ Great Society where they changed all the mental health rules, started releasing people.
Well, some of it.
Yeah,
there
some,
was
but that was
spread-
a mass
but-
dump under
but
Reagan.
It happened under
But he
Reagan.
wasn't old. He was in his 20s.
Yeah, that was a
He
mass dump
wasn't.
under
I mean,
Reagan.
this.
But my point being is that this young man had been severely disturbed for a long time, and some of these people are honestly better institutionalized.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And the rules are
and this
such
is,
that
and we
they're
have
not
to get
there.
away from the PC society that says, well, we can't institutionalize these people. That'd make us bad people if we institutionalize them. No, it makes us good people if we institutionalize them. I'm sorry, they've lost it. Something went haywire in their brain. Something went haywire in their bodies.
Yeah.
They've lost it. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
But
It actually makes me think about, it's funny how, in these type of situations, they say you can laugh or cry, and so I tend to look toward things that I've heard comedians say before when situations like this happen, and I remember a couple of things that Chris Rock said. I remember once he said,
it could be prophetic.
yeah, because it was kind of, both of them were kind of prophetic. One was, you know, you can't just be crazy no more. Like what happened to crazy? Like, you know, and they say, oh, you know, we need gun control. We need, you know, we need this, we need that. You know, and he said, you know, what happened to crazy? Like
We need crazy control.
yeah, he said, well, we said we don't need gun control. We need bullet control. He said every bullet needs to cost $5,000. He said because if every bullet costs $5,000, he said if somebody got shot, he'd be like, damn, I don't know. He put $50,000 worth of bullets in him. He had to do something. So you know, it just that it helps me to think about it in a humorous way to really to cope with it because the scope of it is amazing. Let me push through this list a little bit for. Now I didn't remember where this happened, but I do remember Killeen, Texas. It was Ruby's Cafeterias in Killeen, Texas. That was 23 people.
Killeen is right by the Army base.
Mm-hmm. There
We
was
have some crazies down in Texas.
Oh, yeah, I'm surprised most of the list is in Texas.
yeah, there was a shooting in a McDonald's in California.
San Diego.
Yeah.
There was 21 people and 19 wounded. University of Texas.
The guy in the bell tower.
That was the tower shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah. 14.
Which is the first one to really.
What year was that?
That really shook the nation.
That was
in the
66.
60s.
That was 66.
Yeah, because I mean,
That really shook the nation.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you know that
I
about
remember being 7 years
Sniper
old
shooting?
and hearing that on the news at night, which the whole family used to sit around and watch.
Yeah, that was 14 people, 31 wounded. Of course, which Brian was probably still a little young for, but the one you probably remember better than most, the older memory that you remember better than most, Columbine.
Oh, Columbine.
Columbine.
oh, I remember being home with Rihanna when that happened. Oh, watching the news.
Yeah, 13
And the
people.
kids coming out with their hands on their heads in
yeah.
single file line.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, just the shock
it's
on
a
their
shocking
faces.
image. It's a shocking image.
Yeah.
School shootings.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one outside of Wichita when I was a kid. One of the first big ones were in Pratt, Kansas, where they shot up a bunch of kids.
I can go back to parenting some on that, but that's going through.
Yeah, that was 13 people, 24 wounded. You've got, it's a post office shooting in
Remember that?
Edmond, Oklahoma.
That's when the term
Yeah, I
going
forgot about
postal
that.
started.
Yeah, 14, killed 14. You've got San Bernardino, just happened, 14 people killed. You've got, what is this, Binghamton, New York? That was 13 people and 4 wounded.
Where was it? Like a school
That
or
was-
just a business?
When was Fort Hood?
Fort Hood, actually that's next on the list, but the Binghamton shooting was the American Civic Association is where it happened. Fort Hood in 09, that
I would
was,
say which one?
yeah.
They've had a couple there.
That was 13 people, 30 wounded at Fort Hood. And then last on the list, just because these were the most people killed, was the Navy Yard in D.C. and there in 12 people killed.
Very unstable person there again. That guy was a nutcase.
You never know what can cause somebody to just, and not making excuses by any means, but you can be sitting next to somebody and they seem as sane as you, and one thing happens and you just see the crazy and you're like, where did that come from?
Well,
That's a scary thing.
Here's a lot of the issues I think when I was female that my sister's a pharmacist, my dad was a pharmacist. We tend to treat people with drugs anymore than we treat people with how to get yourself sane again, how to hold yourself up.
Yeah.
We tend to want to make people victims instead of survivors. And if you turn around and you go to a psychiatrist and he puts you on drugs, and the drugs have all kinds of side effects, you may take that person that was just having some issues. Now that person has issues that are psychoses that are brought on by the drugs. Do you
Yeah.
really know, where they go? It has a lot to do with that. I mean, these antidepressant drugs in particular can have serious side effects.
Well, there's a lot of antidepressants that you have to take another drug to counteract the side effects, which is ridiculous to me.
You're not.
And I get that there are circumstances that people need it. I totally get that. But I think that you're right. Nowadays, doctors of all areas of practice are very quick to take this drug and you'll be better.
Yep.
I don't want to get to the underlying cause of anything that is the problem, whether it's physical or mental, psychological. It's, to me, it's sad that it's such a turnaround business anymore.
that adds
I
a lot
need to
to
have
do.
more patients so I can get more money.
Big pharma, they do a lot of research and they come up with miracle drugs for us. They come up with drugs that just unbelievable help to us. But at the same time, they're out there pushing to make that profit.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
we were.
And so you got to consider that. This is part of the problem. My father and my sister ran a single entrepreneur pharmacy. And my sister just sold out to Hy-Vee not a year and a half ago. Because they set up through the government with Plan B that you couldn't make any money on Medicaid, Medicare, whichever it is. That she was making like $1 or $2 profit on a prescription. That's not going to keep you in business very long, especially when you live in a town like Kirksville, Missouri, that has a lot of rural towns around, and a lot of these people are on that. They're older population.
Yeah.
So, or poor population, and this is what they're on. So, the thing you're battling there is you're battling several things. Their lobby,
Well, we were.
our government that can be bought at any cost.
Yeah.
Any of these congressmen and senators that can be bought at any cost. I wonder why they have a low approval rating.
We
That's
were
the
watching-
main reason right there.
We were watching something the other day about Oxycontin, is in the same class as, it's basically heroin. And I can't remember who they said, it was somebody in government was like, we need to let this go through and be released. And so the FDA just, okay.
Well, I can
And-
promise you, I was in pain when I had my knee replaced. Oxycodone did fine. I had some small withdrawal off.
Yeah,
And as some of you know, I'm a former drug addict. I've had real
which is
withdrawal.
amazing to me that they even gave it to you.
So, but.
Because a lot of times they're very, if you've had any type of drug issue, they don't.
No, they don't, but you have to have something strong enough to get you through it, and it's going to be
Yeah.
a narcotic. And I'm certainly strong enough now, I've overcome so much of my life as a survivor that,
Well, and I think you
I'm
knew
never
what to
gonna-
expect, so.
I'm never going to go back that way again. So, there's things I can handle in my life when I know what I can handle. I wouldn't do something I can handle. Oxycontin? No way. No way. That is an addictive drug. You start doing meth, particularly women get addicted to meth very quickly. And, it just eats people alive. And
Yeah,
And I did meth.
It's a sad thing
I
when
did
you
all
see
these,
it.
most of these drugs. I've done it one time around. So, not proud of it, but I understand it. I know what it's like to be on them. I know what it's like to get off of them.
Yeah, a lot of
But that's a testimony,
Yeah.
you, there's a reason for that. There's a reason you're where you are today.
No, that's faith in God. I'll stand and testify to that anyway.
And a woman with
And
a
a-
cast iron frying pan.
Well said, anonymous female. That's another story for another day. But it did hurt.
Sorry, we got off
I'm not
topic.
honestly all that quick to come down on the big drug companies. I do think they've done a tremendous amount of good. I think most doctors are not just prescribing shit just to prescribe shit. mean, I had a roommate who tried to kill himself and walked into my room in the middle of the night with a gun at 3 in the morning. Was going to blow his brains out, and luckily enough, I got him to drug him up with some sleeping pills, took him to the hospital, locked him up, and it was a 2-year battle to find the right combination of drugs. So we were on the tip of the iceberg of brand new science. We were trying to figure it out, and also I would throw out too. How many times do you hear the reverse argument where somebody's dying? You know they're dying, and the FDA withholds drugs from them that potentially could save their life.
Yep.
And I find that to be an even greater wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
It's a very, very tricky issue.
I have my cousin in particular, who I pulled off the street and suffered from some same ills I was when I was a young man. He was on drugs. Went out to California. I think he got on meth. Came back and he was schizophrenic. And I'll be damned if I should have realized it and I didn't. And he walked into the FBI office downtown Kansas City ranting and raving.
Oh, wow.
But how would you
got arrested,
how
but
would
he-
you know to? I mean, most people don't know what.
Well, that's where it's hard to tell as a family
schizophrenia
member.
is. Yeah, well, schizophrenia is that people can be very just normal. I mean, it's
super
not
normal,
an easy. Yeah, it's not
Joe's
an
very
easy.
successful now. He makes about $100,000 a year. He writes a program. He's just brilliant kid. I couldn't call him a kid anymore because he's damn near
But
40.
he's got the right cocktail going on.
They helped him. He found a way to get his own help that way by going through the extreme measure, and that's quite a story in its own right. So we're kind of a little bit off subject here, but
I think it's a similar subject. I mean, I think it ties into why people do these things. I mean, we have just tapped into in the baby stage of genetic research. So yes, we're throwing catch-alls at things to see if they work, but you will see in the next 20 to 30 years drugs that are specific for your DNA makeup that work.
yes.
The science will become more precise. The guesswork will start to eventually come out of it, and they will be very effective. And I don't think
Well,
there's a whole industry people all the way across the board, from pharma to government to doctors to everybody else, who are in this giant conspiracy to fuck up people and not help them. I think most people get in that line of work to help people. I really
don't
do.
know.
And I'm going to say,
I think there's two sides to that,
I'm going to say that
too.
there is abuse in the system. I would never say that there's not. And I would say to say that's the norm, I would completely disagree.
I think you're right. Most people get into it to help people, but I think that it's easily the money becomes something more. I think that happens to a lot of people.
I think at probably a CEO level, perhaps a little bit at a government level, but you would have to be talking towards the largest conspiracy theory for that to happen. And also the United States.
I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's just plain old greed.
Fair enough. But I would say the United States has made more advancement in the treatment of more illnesses. People are living longer than they ever have. Now you could argue that the quality of life maybe isn't as good. I don't know. So that's a completely separate subject. But man, I mean, I think what the wonders that we've accomplished in the last 30 years are just ridiculous. It's stunning. And yes, it ties into this subject only because, yeah, there have been a handful of people that we've identified on the list that you put together that were maybe what you would call a religious zealot or somebody with an ideology, but the vast majority of them were not.
Yeah, they had some imbalance.
A mental problem, that we weren't able to identify and address.
And I think that's the reason why I started with the fact that I think that it's so much more nuanced. I had a coworker that I don't think anybody in our office knew that she was manic depressive, and she was actually the happy, nicest woman that.
Well, that's manic depressive.
Yeah, but she was, and then one day, one day she, she stayed late, wrapped some stuff up at work, went home and killed herself, and I think it took a long time for everybody at the office to kind of wrap their brain around, because everybody in the Kansas City area may remember
The weather forecast. That killed himself on Channel 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was a great guy on TV, but was Let's see, Dan Harmon, was that
I
his
think
name?
that's right. Ian Harmon was his name.
Yeah. You remember secondhand records?
No.
Or secondhand vinyl, I think it's called.
I remember the name.
Where's that at?
I'm trying to remember where the store was located, but she was.
It was down in Westport where Westport
Yeah,
Ale
Street
House is
Side.
now.
That's Street Side Records.
Yeah, I think it's Street Side now. I think it used to be secondhand.
Well, no, it's Street Side for years.
Yeah.
It was Street
Well,
Side
no,
for
well,
about
it
30
was-
years. It may have been second before that.
Yeah, but yeah, she.
Right.
But it was Street Side since the 80s.
Oh, okay. Well, no, her location was in a different spot there, cause.
So she owned it.
Yeah, but yeah, she was big into the arts community here,
Mhm.
and when she left the arts community and went and she was working with us, she still had ties to the arts community, and so it was kind of a big deal. Her name was Ann Winter. It was a big deal when she passed, and like I just remember thinking, did anybody know, like, other than maybe her husband, but did anybody know? And which is kind of what I always think when these mass shootings happen. Like some people definitely have, the Tsarnaev brothers, and like some people have real ideology things that they're trying to make a point, and they do horrific things, but like you say, so many of these people seem to have mental issues, and I just always wonder, did anybody know? Because you see so many of like the parents or whatever, it's just like, oh, I just didn't know, or I just didn't think it was that bad, and I'm like, no, like nobody knew.
Well, like this one, the ex-wife wasn't surprised because they got divorced because he was violent. But the parents were like, if I would have known, I would have stopped him.
The FBI investigated him 3 different times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is my problem. Let me throw out an understanding here. I'm NRA. I'm a member of a gun club.
Yeah.
Okay? And I will tell you that if we enforced even half of our gun laws, a guy like this wouldn't be buying a gun.
Well, they said today, but they said today on the news, the FBI is the one that does the background checks.
Yes.
Right.
So how did one side not know
They
what the
have
other
a
was
bad
doing?
database.
How did they not
It really is.
how was that not flagged?
And in today's world,
Mm-hmm.
I've bought a lot of guns over my time. I've bought them from a person-to-person basis. I have to take that gun around and register it. I get background check. Every time I've bought a gun, I've had a background check. Every single time. My brother-in-law owns probably pistols and rifles. There's only one gun I know of that he has. 2 guns that I know of that he has that he did not get background checks on. One was my grandfather's World War II service pistol that when my dad died, my mom gave it to me and I gave it to Derek, 38. And then his brother Kurt makes these beautiful long rifles, flintlock long rifles. And he does the metal, the wood, everything's done by hand. The man is an ultimate craftsman. And that was given to him as a gift. And since that's basically an ancient or an antique style weapon, I don't know if you even have to have background checks or something like that because it's not a common weapon. So, but my point being here is that if you look on the books and you see what the gun laws are, there's no way that guy should have ever been able to buy a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Which one? Federal
He
or
was
state?
on a terrorist list at one time. He should have never been able to buy a gun. He should have been flagged hard.
They
This is a
cleared.
failure of our government.
Which government? The state government or federal government? Because
Federal government, because the database
Whoever
has
does
to
the
be
background
database.
checks.
run on a federal
The date-
basis, so you don't go out of a state to go buy
The
another
state
gun.
pulls from the federal database, but it's still a state law that mandates where
Correct.
a person can get
But
a
they
gun.
have.
But
the-
they did
the
a background check
the
on
fe-
him, and
And
he went and he cleared him.
The FBI
But
cleared him
the
twice.
FBI should have flagged him.
Yeah.
But the state law doesn't have to acknowledge the flag. They're not under any obligation to do that. It's a state.
Well,
But it's a
if he's-
failure, but
if
my
he's
point
clear.
is it's a failure.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not-
think,
I'm not
you know what,
denying
I think
that's a
I think
reasonable
that's
thing.
a really good point, and it actually goes to several different systems in our government, but this in particular, since this is what we're talking about, if there is a federal law or structure in place, why is it that the states get to decide, I don't want to do that?
It's not a federal law that prevents you from purchasing a gun.
We're not, but I think that's,
not the thing.
it's
What we're
overall,
saying
like,
is-
why if you can go through everything, they can opt out of gun laws, they can opt out of,
No, they're not opting out of
they
anything.
don't, you just said they don't have to, they
No,
don't have
no, the law
to
reads that
acknowledge
they
the
have-
flag.
But he was cleared. So the state did not have to acknowledge the fact that there was a clearance. If he had been convicted or they had him on, didn't clear him, for example, then it would have been a bigger problem that they had sold him the gun. But
Oh,
the guy had been cleared. So the FBI cleared him twice. You know, so that for whatever reason, and I don't know, and I'm not, again, I don't know what the evidence was,
Yeah,
I don't
just
know.
not enough evidence.
Just to say that the FBI suspected him isn't enough of a reason. The FBI suspects a shit ton of people. I know a lot of people who get stopped
Well,
and
they
can't even
actually
clear
interviewed
TSA
him.
because the FBI
Yeah.
database is wrong
Yeah.
on a lot of cases,
Yeah.
you know, and so it's a mess. It's probably harder to get a global entry card, to be perfectly honest, to fly than it is to go buy a gun. It's ridiculous.
There's
that
some
is
issues with
scary.
that.
It was for me. I mean, getting my global entry card was far harder than it was to get
My-
a gun license.
My issue isn't with people owning guns. My issue is, like we're talking about, you know, we've watched so many things lately on semi-automatics and automatic weapons that are now street legal because they're sports. And I don't understand that.
Let me
I
stop you there
don't
for one. You
understand why you would need a semi-automatic weapon to shoot a deer.
Okay, now wait a second. And like I said, I'm NRA, and I don't, you never join any organization that agree with everything they come by, very
Yeah.
rarely. If you do, you're just buying Kool-Aid and in it. There's nothing wrong with an AK-47.
I don't think
It's a
there
rifle.
is.
But what may be the problem is that we allow 30-round clips. I would have no issue going to a 10-round clip.
But
I would
but
say-
At
Dave,
a 10-round clip with an
honestly, though, what do
AK-47,
you
you
need
still
an
go to the range and
AK-47
shoot
for?
with it in practice.
I would even just say a larger problem, and I think you've hit on something that hits on both sides of the political debate. You have the same problem when it comes to abortion as you do with gun control, and they are equal in different parties, you know, do this. They refuse to yield even an inch of ground because they think the second you start yielding an inch of ground, you're all of a sudden carving away, and
Well put.
eventually you're going to lose your rights. That's why both sides fight equally hard for things that don't make any sense.
Any good
but you
sense.
can't.
Any
You
sense
have
at
to
all.
at some point. Somebody has to give because back to what you're saying about Chris Rock, and you know they should have a higher cost for bullets. I know so many people that make their own bullets. It,
We reload.
it doesn't matter. You know, no matter,
If you
there
go-
has to
If
be.
you're gonna go out to the range and shoot for sporting practice, and you're a sporting shooter, it's very expensive to go around and go out and buy 1,000 rounds.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they tax bullets, believe me. Bullets aren't cheap,
Yeah.
and they aren't getting any cheaper. They're getting more expensive. So you learn to reload.
Any aspiring street rappers out there? I think Big Dave just gave you the name of a mixtape. Bullets aren't cheap. Remember that?
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Or
Bullets aren't
reload.
cheap. The bullets will kill you.
But I do think it's an interesting point on both sides because in both cases you can make a legitimate argument that you're dealing with the potential taking of a life. So this is why I think you have abortion advocates who won't even try to pass laws to protect late third trimester abortions, which you could easily make an argument that that's a viable life at that point. And I'm pro-choice. And once again, I'm a gun
and I'm
advocate,
basically
but I
pro-life,
also
but I would also, as a compromiser, say I made a horrible mistake. I got pregnant. First trimester, you abort. because after that becomes a child.
Yeah, beyond the first trimester.
It's not even the first.
If you can't make that
I mean,
decision,
and this is just, that, I mean, it's
if
like
you can't make that decision in the first trimester, then you should take that child to term.
But it is an interesting juxtaposition to me that you have a lot of people who are pro-choice, and I am one, who says that there's at some point of viability where you're taking a life away, and I think there's a reasonable compromise to be made there. I'm also a gun rights supporter, but I'm also like, I don't know why the hell you need a massive
and to me,
assault to
yes.
slaughter a bunch
No.
of people.
To me,
That potentially could
So
be
you look at if you want to look at it as murder anywhere around, whether it's abortion or gun control.